So those first 5 years, he had 3 open heart surgeries, 2 eye surgeries, and he also had a stomach surgery because he would have reflux, and it was so severe that he would just drop over. After the 3rd surgery he had on his heart, he was recovering pretty well. At that point, he was 18 months old. And at about 6 weeks post-op, they were talking about releasing him from the hospital. And he had pizza that evening, and we were talking about maybe he'd get to go home in a week or so. And the next morning, he had a cardiac arrest and died for 6 minutes. And that was a real shock to everybody. He didn't even have any IV lines in or anything. So that was very traumatic for him. And in order to get him going, they used the paddles, and they didn't use sterile technique because they were rushing. And then he got a blood infection. So he was really sick. It's called septic from the blood infection. And his lung even collapsed. So I really thought he was dying that time for sure, but God again sustained him. So he was in the hospital 7 months, and in and out of ICU probably 9 times. Just unbelievable dogfight.
With the lack of oxygen for Dave when he was dead for 6 minutes, the lack of oxygen is what causes cerebral palsy. And he also developed seizures from that to boot. So those 2 kind of erupted out of that 6 minutes, because he really shouldn't have been alive. Most people can't survive being dead for 6 minutes. So we were just, that's where he beat the odds right there. When we got out of Philadelphia, David was not getting any better. Kids were dying left and right. And at one point, everybody in David's room died. Ever since he was born, I know I've gotten much closer to the Lord. Spent many more hours on my knees than I guess I ever thought I would. And I know my faith just grew dramatically. And I'm just leaning on the Lord the whole time. We didn't know from one day to the next. I mean, when David was born, just like we did with our other children, we gave him over to the Lord. Said, you know, it's not our child, he's yours, Lord. If you want him to live, go for it. And we have held him out with open hands ever since.
I made the decision to take him out of school and homeschooling, and I homeschooled him for 5 years. And during that time, he learned how to read and write and do his multiplication tables and all of that.
And then we came down here and put him in.
Yes, and then I thought, I'm going to try public school, special education. So we did that, and he was going to be an 8th grader when we moved here, and so he went into the Laguna School District. And Laguna is such a sweet school district because of many reasons, but one is because in Laguna there's so many artists and things that you can just kind of be whoever you want to be at Laguna.
And before he knew it, Dave was the team manager for the girls' varsity volleyball. And suddenly he was having lunch with 8, 9 blonde volleyball girls, and the other guys kept saying, who is this guy? Who is this guy?
It would be fun to see David. They would all be huddling, sweating, you know, screaming, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, it would be like a flower, and then they would break up, and there's David right in the middle of them. You couldn't even see him when they're all huddling. But I was so grateful that God gave him that experience, even though he couldn't play sports. He still got the experience being in the throes of the excitement and the sweaty bodies and all that. So it was cool.
So we try to give him opportunities to test what he can do without giving him freedom that we know is just going to drown him or cause him harm. And so we try to give out bits and pieces and say, you know, let's see how you do with that. And if you can do that, then we'll go to the next step.
So it's a struggle, and I'm sure we make mistakes, and I'm sure he makes mistakes, and he gets angry, and he's frustrated because, you know, and it is uncharted territories. Most kids, you know, they'll say, what's your kid doing? Well, they're in college or they're working. Well, he's not doing either one. But on the other hand, you know, the old saying, when God gives you lemons, make lemonade, he's done tremendous. And I mean, somebody asked me today, what's David up to? But he's so busy. He's talking to the, you know, this sports team, and he's doing something with the Heart Association. He's getting us on Family Feud. He's doing this documentary. He's helping with the volleyball team. he really has quite a busy life, and I'm involved because I'm driving him around, you know. Some mothers have this real issue about being needed, and they go through this whole empty nest thing, and they like want their kids to want them. I don't feel that. If anything, I kind of go on the other side of feeling kind of smothered by all this needs, but you do what you got to do. But I would love if he was independent and could go off to college. And in the meantime, there is a reason, and I always think of Jeremiah 29:11 for David, you know, for I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you a future and a hope. And I really believe that for David.
I think I'm a fighter because I've been what I've been through. Pain is real in this world. When you think like, okay, here's somebody that is going through all these disabilities, and then when he goes into a doctor's appointment or when he sees someone else hurting, he forgets all about his own disabilities and just cares about the other person. And he can feel other people's pain. Generally, people are in their own little worlds, but when they hear about like my story, and when I tell them that yes, I have disabilities, they look at me and say, okay, this kid has disabilities, but he cares about other kids with disabilities, that really surprises them.
Mr. Billinger, I'm the assistant principal here at the high school. I've been here, this is my 4th year. I met David first 2 days I was here, first day I was here. He came in and introduced himself. He sought me out because he wants to know who the new people are on campus. I think if he is given the opportunity to speak before people, I think people should listen to his story. The one thing I told David, be humble, be proud of what you've accomplished, but don't just stop there. Just because you finished high school, don't stop there. Set yourself up for something beyond that, because as you talk to people about their goals and their objectives and trying to overcome adversity, you have to also keep setting goals for yourself. And that's where he's at in his life. He's trying to figure out what to set, and we go back to passion. What are you passionate about? Those that talk to David or listen to David, and that's the key, is listen. What I've learned and what they can learn is perseverance. No matter how difficult our days are, how difficult our situations are, whether it's parents coming in for me or students or rules, regulations, you know what? It can never be as difficult as what he must be living on a daily basis. And so enjoy what you have while you have it, accept who you are, and do the very best you can.
I live life up to the fullest because my life was so rare that I was going to come back to life. I'd rather be out in the world doing something, helping kids, doing something for someone. And I guess that's because a lot of people have done stuff for me. I try to just forget about the disabilities and just try to make people laugh, even though they might be feeling bad, or they might be feeling down for some reason. Try to cheer them up with my funniness. So just because you have disabilities doesn't mean you can't have a life. Yes, it's different, but it doesn't mean like you're gonna die any sooner. It doesn't mean you can't do anything like you can't do anything like other kids can. Yeah, you can. There's some things disabled people cannot do. Depends on what your disability is. I really don't feel like I'm disabled or look that I'm disabled, but they're there, trust me.
My name is Lance Stewart, and I'm the head volleyball coach at Laguna Beach High School for girls and boys. I was introduced to Dave my first day on the job 5 years ago, and that was the beginning of a nice relationship. The girls all love him, and he loves girls. And what 19, 20, actually 21-year-old kid or boy doesn't love girls? It's a constant reminder to them as well that, hey, here's someone who has got some challenges, but he's there helping and working hard as he can work. And so the interactions are good.